Eibach Stage 2R kits have rapidly become one of the most popular options we recommend for people calling in looking for a modest upgrade for their daily driver, and you can't get more popular than a Ford F-150. So we brought both of them in to put them through their paces, pushing them far beyond their limits to see if they'll be enough for you. I'm Sean Bowman. We're in the new shock surplus shop, so let's talk some shocks. For those of you who are new here to the Shock Surplus Party, we like to test every suspension system we carry on our own vehicles so we can see if they're right for you. Recently, our resident king of RBVs and lover of all things, Eibach, picked up this minty, fresh, leftover model 2024 F150 to finally give his Eibach Stage 2R equipped Ranger the rest it deserves. Steve, of course, is a family man first, but he's also a real OG in the rock crawling scene. So beyond churning tons of miles commuting here and back all through the week and whisking his family away in absolute comfort on their many cross-country journeys, it's also tasked with towing JP, his solid axle swap Jurassic Park themed Explorer, to all the best trails in the West. That certainly is no easy task for any truck, and especially its suspension, because, well, brother, it's got to do a lot of things well, but this Eibach Stage 2R has mostly over-delivered in all the areas it was intended to. These Eibach Stage 2R kits include their 2.0 IFB coilovers and reservoir rear shocks and are aimed to provide more comfort and control out on the street and a little bit more usability on mild trails. They're a great suspension upgrade and lets you level the vehicle a little bit. Keen viewers are probably already aware, Eibach also has their Stage 2 kits, which use the same coilovers in the front, but include their Pro Truck Sport non-reservoir IFP monotube rear shocks. So basically, the R in the Stage 2R name just means you're getting reservoir rear shocks. In our testing, we've kind of had a hard time feeling the difference between the two shocks, at least on initial feel. That is, until they got hot. So really, the only thing you're gaining with that big old R is heat dissipation in the back. Put more simply, it'll be a lot harder to make those rear shocks fade, and if they do, they will recover much more quickly. Something we found out on our test loop when those reservoir rear shocks survived and those non-reservoir front coilovers did not, but more on that later. These Eibach 2.0 coilovers are the only one I can at least think of on the market that are specifically designed around on-vehicle adjustments, meaning you can bolt them onto the vehicle and still make adjustments without a spring compressor. This is possible because they use steel threaded bodies and then they use a slip washer between the springs and the adjustment collars, so those pigtails on the springs don't bind up against the adjuster and fight you when you're making the adjustments. You will still need to put the truck on jack stands unless you're the Incredible Hulk, but they give you a pretty decent spanner wrench now, so adjusting these is about as easy as it gets. Out of the box lift heights are supposed to be 3 inches of lift on vehicles with a 2.7 EcoBoost, around 2.5 if you have a Coyote or a 3.5 EcoBoost like this truck, or 2 inches on Power Boost, but probably was a fluke. We saw a ton more lift than that. In fact, we got our coilovers with the adjustment collars maxed all the way out. Any coilover you can buy, at least at some point, is going to have human hands on it during the assembly and manufacturing process. One of those points is usually when they're assembling the coilovers and setting preload. So being off on what their advertised out-of-the-box lift heights are supposed to be is certainly not uncommon and almost to be expected, which is why coilovers are adjustable. But that is another reason why these Eibachs are just so great. Any other coilover for almost every application would require you to remove them from your vehicle, throw them on a spring compressor to make your adjustments, and throw them back on. And chances are, because they're not giving you super accurate preload adjustment parameter recommendations like Eibach does, probably going to have to do that more than once to get it right. Not only can these Eibachs be adjusted while they're on the vehicle after you install them, their recommended adjustment parameters could not be more accurate. So You do it once and you get it dialed in once. Now, the main reason we backed these off in the first place, besides just only wanting 2.5 inches of lift in the front, is because of the lack of droop travel at that ride height. They felt really harsh on rebound and just topped out a lot. Actually, during the time we were testing these, Eibach backed off their maximum lift height recommendations from 3 inches down to 2.3 inches, which we think is definitely a good idea on their part. In terms of travel gains, these coilovers gave this truck basically a little over an inch of travel. Stock measured in at about 7 1/8 inches of wheel travel, but these Eibachs went up to just under 8.5, so there was a sizable improvement there. Now, if you're quick at the maths, then you probably figured out that we did lose a little over an inch of drooper down travel by being at 2.5 inches of lift in the front. But these trucks are really prone to bottoming out up front. They do drive really nose heavy, and those rear springs are super stiff. They're super oversprung in the rear. So lifting the front up to put some weight over those stiff rear springs and make it a little harder to bottom out the front was a worthwhile compromise for sure. And it still articulated better even up front. They did top out a little more than I would necessarily like, but those top outs happened a lot less frequently than the stock stuff used to bottom out, so we think that's a deal you'd take too. For those of you guys who don't want to lift, well, these coilovers can go down to as little as 1/2 inch over stock, something you probably wouldn't see, and that just means you're gaining a better shock and a good bit more droop travel for some better articulation as well. Being that these coilovers are already loaded and the reservoirs are already mounted to the shock bodies in the rear, this is a fairly easy suspension install. But if you want to know how to put on a coilover and shock set on your 2015 to current Ford F-150, make sure to check out our 6112 review that we did a couple weeks back. Got it? Good. Let's get to the good stuff. The spacers are off, Eibachs are on, and we can already tell that's the way to do it. We obviously, as you saw, have ran into a whole host of issues, particularly that were limiting travel with the spacers. And now we have all the factory travel and more, so we're not feeling it top out. And obviously, outside of the things that are travel related, the Eibachs just feel better. We're driving in a parking lot right now, and so there's some cracks and pebbles, but there's going to be a good bit more when we get out on the road here, because it's an industrial park. They don't pave it often. And you can, first of all, you can just drop right off of that driveway entrance like it's not there, which is not something we could do with the stock suspension, and certainly not with the spacers.
Not without compromise.
Not without compromise. And now it handles like a car with a lift. I mean, very predictable. And you can't even really feel any of these pebbles, cracks, and stuff in the road. That's kind of a little nasty, a little ugly. We can just smack this driveway. One bounce and it's over.
It's done.
And it's done. Yeah. And, you know, yes, the most performance you are going to gain with a coilover upgrade is on the street, but this already feels so much better than the spacers that I don't know how you could live with it otherwise.
The only advantage of the spacers is it's cheap and lifts, but then there's so many drawbacks. There's so many issues that we saw with those.
Yeah.
You know, when we did those, we knew it would be bad, but not to the degree that we ended up finding out. You know?
Well, and you certainly couldn't have just done that, just drop right out of that driveway again. And yeah, yes, the spacers are cheap, but are they really cheap in the grand scheme of things?
No,
when you
because basically we did those, right?
Yeah.
Now it needs upper control arms.
Now it could use
because the ball joints are toasted.
Now it can use
so what money did you save when now after less than 2,000 miles, now you have to replace your ball joints and your upper control arms?
Yeah.
That's not saving money.
And you know what? 10 of those miles are off-road, you know?
Yeah.
So that's mostly street driving. So it just, yes, you're going to blow things up faster off-road. But even on the street, it was hurting stuff, and you could feel it's just so much happier and the suspension moves so much more freely. Those are parking stops, brother.
Yeah.
And you can just drive over that. And these are only a 2-inch body, which on a full-size truck is not a lot of shock. And they're certainly not crazy.
Not for a 35.
Not for a 35, and they're handling it well. We were noticing some dribbling with the stock struts with the spacers on the 35s, because that is a big and heavy tire. chances are, if you are gonna be doing a leveling kit, you're gonna be upgrading the stock tires. The stock dampers can barely handle this truck as it is, so you're really hurting things, and that dribble is gonna take out your tires, and it doesn't feel good when you're driving down the road. And so we can tell tires are on the ground because you can take bumps around this corner without
Leaving that corner is just so much smoother.
Oh, so much smoother, yeah. And it you know, body roll still exists, but which is just going to happen 6 feet in the air, 12 feet in the air. But it happens so much more progressively and gently and predictably rather than just heaving over. And so, you know, when someone cuts you off in traffic, when someone, you know, runs into your lane, you can actually now confidently avoid it, which is something that I don't think we talk about enough with these aftermarket suspensions on the street, because most of the time we're driving on the street and people drive like garbage. So you know, not only is the truck more comfortable, but it's more secure, it's more stable, and you're not going to be feathering your tires like you would have with the stock shocks. Yeah. So yeah, it's ultimately saving you money in the long term too. So, you know, why you would do the spacers, I don't know.
Yeah. I think that there's a big misconception, and most people think it's the easy solution and it will work, and they don't realize the drawbacks and the extra expense that's hidden that will cost you later.
Oh, definitely. So. Yeah. Well, next up, we're going to try this off-road out at Gorman. Obviously, we know it's going to be a huge improvement, but stay tuned to see how much of an improvement it's going to be. All right. After running those spacers for so long, we're really excited to try out these Eibachs. We're here at our normal testing grounds. We're going to take it up the hill climb. We took the spacer setup up on and couldn't keep a tire on the ground if we tried. So we're going to see how much more articulation you gain from a setup that actually adds travel rather than takes it away.
Exactly.
Now, this hill climb is pretty dug out. It's got some pretty big holes for a truck this long. And we're walking right through it. Feels like the tires are staying mostly on the ground here. It was really struggling previously, and now it's just not.
No, we're actually getting tires to the ground. So.
Yeah, and it's so much more. I mean, it feels comfortable. It's hard to talk comfort when you're going this slow, but I can barely feel the trail underneath us. Yeah, but it motors right up that. So really, we always talk about all the things you lose with spacers, but you gain so much by getting these coilovers. The ride is so much better, and not hopping tire all the time is great.
Oh, for sure. Or breaking things.
Or breaking things, yeah, because we know these aren't going to break stuff like those spacers did. Okay. All right, so now we're going down the hill, which is an even bigger test of articulation. IFS doesn't flex, and these rear springs are stiff, and they're getting unloaded. So this is where we're really picking up tire, and it always feels sketchy. Wow, it's flexing so much more.
Oh, yeah.
And we might have just lifted there, but nowhere near as much as we did before. I don't feel like we're going to die, which is a big difference.
No, it's comfortable.
It's comfortable.
It feels, you know.
I've driven down driveways worse than that in some cars. You know what I mean? I mean, there's no driveway that's that bad. Yeah. But the way this truck makes it feel, it's, you know, makes some pretty gnarly stuff to what most people would think of gnarly seem pretty easy tame. And tame.
Yeah.
And
you feel comfortable. You don't feel like you're stressed out. You don't feel, you know.
Yeah, so you could actually enjoy your truck with your lift rather than being miserable and replacing as much stuff as we're gonna have to replace. Okay, so we're down at a little obstacle that they like to call the frame twister. It's supposed to show some more articulation, but the big thing what we're looking at here is there's some holes, there's some chunky little bits, and it's gonna kind of let us know how these feel over a rough and rugged trail at lower speeds. It's really mimicking that forest road. Now immediately, I can tell these Eibachs are so much more compliant than stock.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I can feel it dropping into these little holes through these bumps, the chunkiness. And it feels good. You know,
It's so much more comfortable than the stock.
Oh, it is, yeah. And
yeah,
we said this up on the hill climb obstacle, but I'm just not tightening up my core and my back and squeezing my kidneys to stay in my seat. It's just driving over the stuff, you know, even that big stuff. Yes, We are moving around a little bit, but it is so much better than stock. And for what you're getting out of just a 2-inch body coilover for this kind of driving, it's pretty good. All right, so we've been cruising down the main road here at our test spot. It's a little gravelly, it's a little washboardy, it's got some bumps and rocks and stuff like that. And you know, these Eibachs are pretty comfy, right,
Yeah,
Steve?
they are for sure.
Yeah, and
Big improvement.
you know, where the stock suspension had a real problem with the rear axle wanting to rattle and shimmy around and even get a little sideways when we didn't want it to, it feels a lot more planted, a lot more composed, a lot more
controllable. Yeah.
Controllable, yeah, comfortable. And, you know, it's really the lower speeds where they kind of shine, but even at here 42, 45 miles an hour, this is not something we could do with the stock suspension at all.
No.
Yeah, and especially with these F-load
Not in
tires.
confidence.
Oh my God, it's
50 pounds.
50 pounds of pressure on an F-load 35, and these are only 2.0 coilovers.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. All right, it wouldn't be a shock surplus review if we didn't get a little hot and loose. So we'll be taking these Eibachs through a little whoop section that's probably a little bit too much for them to see how they fare. We're going like 20, 30 miles an hour if we can.
I don't think we can do that much.
Yeah, I don't think so either. To see if they can cope, and that's pretty good.
That's 20 right there.
Yeah, that's 20.
Yep.
22. Yeah, that's about all it's got. All right. So, as we were predicting, these aren't something you're gonna be smacking whoops with, brother. But that's not what they're meant for.
No,
you know, it's that they're just a 2-inch body coilover in the front, so they can be a little overwhelmed. Did it feel like it was topping out a lot? I think I kind of felt
a little bit, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so they were just topping out a little bit. So at this ride height, they're a little travel limited to be doing this kind of craziness.
Yep.
Yeah, it doesn't like it.
Nope.
Yeah, I mean, so it is not terrible. You can, if a set of whoops came out in front of you and you could slow down below 20 miles an hour.
I think you'd be fine, yeah.
You'd be okay. Yeah. And if we're being honest, 20 miles an hour through that with the stock stuff, nah, yeah, we'd be going to the moon, brother. Yeah. So this is a pretty sizable upgrade. Obviously, this isn't what they're meant for, but they didn't snap in half, so
it's true.
That's a pretty good plus. Now, we'll just come out and say it. We definitely did blow those coilovers up in fairly spectacular fashion, but that was almost 100% our fault. We sent them too hard. So before you start burning crosses at the Eibach HQ, hear me out. We tested these coilovers back to back with a nearly identical F150 running Bilstein's 2.6-inch diameter body 6112s up front and their 2.0 reservoir 5160s in the rear, and took them on a fairly rough test loop to show you guys the benefits of that bigger body and where that smaller 2-inch body might fall short. The goal was to drive both trucks on this pretty nasty test loop at similar to the same speed so that we can show you the differences in temperature between the two when we were done, and our results ended up being a little bit more conclusive than we thought they would be. Where things went awry is we had Steve set the pace with the Bilstein 6112s first. That was just a little bit beyond what they could handle. So when it was time for the Eibachs, we were far beyond what they were ever designed to deal with. You'll have to stay tuned for that full head-to-head shootout video to drop to get the absolute full scoop and our full analysis on what actually happened. But simply put, we unwittingly set them up to fail and flat out just drove them too hard, brother. I was eyewitness to the first few seconds of the run, and this here truck was flying through the air. I think immediately that sent them into full fade, full hysteresis, and they were bottoming out and topping out violently that whole 2-mile test loop until the bump stops got hole punched by the body, the seal heads exited the chat, and well, these shocks were done. But they still got us home, and as you can see, they got into the shop well enough. So at least that is admirable. Honestly, though, that is far from what this Eibach kit was designed for at all. And if you've made it this far and you feel like these Eibachs are right for you, I could probably put some bets that going full Dukes of Hazzard is not in the cards either. So Ultimately, we did something these weren't meant for, and that's why they blew up. In previous reviews for other applications, I've kind of alluded to the fact that I do think these Stage 2R systems are a little bit of a weird package. I think if you're spending enough time off-road to think you need a reservoir for the extra cooling in the back, on a full-size independent suspension truck, you probably need a 2.5-inch or larger body coilover in the front, much more. Basically, if an Eibach package sounds right for you, you can probably save a few bucks and step down to Stage 2, as not only have we had a hard time feeling a difference between those rear shocks, the rear shocks are far from the thing that is going to be your limitation off-road, and I think we proved that. So, who are these Eibach Stage 2R kits actually for? I've probably said it a bunch of times before, but I really think these Eibachs are like the perfect OEM Plus type setup. They really make notable improvements in the areas where the stock stuff absolutely sucks, and maintains or even slightly improves in the areas where the stock stuff doesn't do half bad. But I gotta throw it back to Steve. I think he still said it best, calling these the Goldilocks shocks. They offer a lot better small bump compliance to the Bilstein, particularly at lower speeds, but feel a little bit more locked down, composed, and better handling than a Fox as well. So I think they're the tweener shock that is probably right for a lot of you do-it-all daily drivers. Now, obviously, this is not my choice for absolutely sending it through the desert, running it up huge rock trails on 40s and stuff like that, but I do think they're probably right in line with how most people are using their F-150s. Something that even we don't talk about enough is how tire size can have a great effect on the ride quality and overall performance of your shocks. As you increase tire size, you're increasing unsprung mass, and unsprung mass is exponentially more difficult for your dampers to deal with than sprung mass, the weight of the truck. With these just being a 2-inch body shock, you do have to be very careful about this because, well, we made the mistake of going just a little too far, and it's not the first time we've done it. As you've probably been able to tell from some of this footage, this truck is running a straight Raptor set of takeoff 35s, wheels and all, and we notice a little bit of harshness on rebound and some extra topping outs that we don't think we would have if we had a little smaller tire. And really, I think a 35 is asking a lot of any 2.0. Ultimately, with these, I think keeping it at 34 or less will keep the suspension happy and your spine a lot happier too. I ran into a very similar issue running 37s on my Bronco with a full Eibach 2.0 coilover kit, and eventually after a few thousand miles it actually ended up starting to cup a fairly brand new set of tires, something that may not be out of the realm of possibility even on these 35s on this truck. So if you're considering 35s or even something larger, it may be worth your while to consider a set of 2.5s, even if you're not hitting the trails hard. These F-150s and a lot of modern vehicles can fit tires much easier than the older stuff, so this is something you should really think about because, brother, these 35s can fit it pretty much at stock height. Ultimately, I think these Eibach Stage 2 and 2R kits are the perfect choice for somebody looking for a little bit more comfort, a little bit more stability, a more level stance on their daily driver, and they might want to load it up occasionally, deal with some towing, some hauling, and don't want all the maintenance of the other guys. Maybe you need your truck to get you down a maintain or unmaintained road to get to your favorite fishing or camping spot, or maybe you like to meander through the trails at low speeds just to see the sights. Or heck, you might have been watching enough of our videos to know you don't want a spacer lift, but you do want a leveling kit. And in all of those cases, these Eibachs are probably the right choice for you. We found out the hard way that if you want to send it to the moon or conquer buggy lines, these probably aren't for you. But if you want a little bit more comfort, you want a little bit more control, and you want something that lasts a long time and gives you a little bit more leveled stance to boot, I think these Eibachs are a very compelling option, especially at their price point. Now, I've been doing a lot of yapping about how 2.0s, this kit as a whole, might be limited for more serious off-road abuse, but Eibach's run by serious enthusiasts, and they've had their ear to the ground enough to see all you new trail rats finding trails and getting into the sport for real for the first time. They certainly ain't dumb neither, and they know well enough that a 2-inch body shock isn't going to cut the ketchup, let alone the mustard, for people hitting serious trails with seriously big tires at seriously high speeds. And, well, the good news is they are already well under the way of developing their own 2.5-inch body kits for a number of applications, but these F-150s are actually one of the first ones. And of course, we'll be getting one of the first production-ready kits in so we can give them the full test, and I'm pretty sure we won't be able to break those. But like I said, this F-150 is just getting rolling, and we have tons of reviews already in the works or planned to drop between now and then. Next up, probably the next thing you'll see from us is we actually compared spacers to these 2.0 coilovers to show you just how bad spacer lift kits are, and you will not believe all the stuff that broke. Additionally, like I said, we have that big fat head-to-head review with the Bilstein 6112s where we give you a whole breakdown on how and why we broke these 2.0 coilovers, so you can also see whether you want that firm, burly Bilstein or you want that cushy Eibach. But of course, there's more. There's always more here at Shock Surplus. During the time I've been yapping at y'all, we've installed a set of Fox 2.0s so we can keep moving down the list of these entry to intermediate level options, and we'll be going to Radflow 2.0s and Dobinson IMS so we can basically close out all the two-ish inch body options before we step up to the big dogs that are still in development now, like the OMI MT64s and of course those Eibach 2.5 kits I mentioned earlier. After that, well, the sky's the limit, and we might be going sky high because Icon does have those 4-inch lifts, and we do like 37, so we might just see what happens. But we also have other rigs going on here, and we know most of you guys are Toyota guys. Jeff has a Surgeon Tundra, and we've been testing an Icon 2.5 EXP kit on it for the last couple of weeks, and I love it. I love it. It's amazing. The added travel has been great, and we're actually going to be rolling that truck into Bilstein's new 6112s and 6100s, which I've heard you guys wanting for a very long time. Those are also available assembled already. We already got mounts for them, so if you're interested in the set, make sure to hop on our website because we can get you dialed in. We also have full reviews that we've pretty much already shot and are editing now for a Dobinson's IMS kit on a brand new 6th generation Ranger. We also just threw on a King 2.5 kit on a 4th gen Tacoma, and those reviews will be coming soon. We also have a Dobinson MRR kit and potentially Bilstein 8112s or Fox 3.0s going on a pair of Broncos that we'll be taking out to our test location and running through their paces as well. So we're really coming into the summer season with some absolute heat. That's not even close to everything we got going on right now and in the coming weeks. So, brother, make sure you're subscribed so you catch all of the knowledge bombs and all the fun stuff we get up to in the meantime. But if you're interested in an Eibach Stage 2R kit for your F-150 or anything else or whatever you drive, make sure to leave us a comment below, hop on shocksurplus.com, send us an email, a chat, give us a call, shoot us a DM, and brother, we can get you dialed in. Otherwise, I'll see you out on the trails.